Well, hello there, and welcome back to another Night to the Movies podcast. And in these podcasts, I talk all things movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I'm reviewing The Bear Season 2. But before I do that, I should say what I say at the start of every podcast I do, which is, if you are watching this podcast on YouTube, hello there to my viewers. But you prefer to listen to your podcast, you can with this one and Night to the Movies on Spotify. And if you are already listening to the podcast on Spotify, hello there to podcast listeners, then you can also check this podcast out visually on my YouTube channel and Night to the Movies on that platform too. Likewise, wherever you may be watching or listening to the podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy this podcast, of course. And leave me some feedback on things to improve on in future podcasts, because there's always things to improve on, and feedback, as ever, is much appreciated. Also, people who've been following my channel recently know what I'm about to say here. It is still the ongoing saga of hay fever. Yes, I've spoken about my problems with hay fever many times on this channel, and those problems are still continuing. And although my hay fever isn't that bad today, I did wake up sneezing, and I am recording this podcast in the morning, so I might be sniffling throughout this podcast, and I might sound a bit bummed up in this podcast, and I can't help that. It's just what hay fever does to you. But other than that, this should be a great and fun podcast to listen to and or watch. So let's get into it. The Bear Season 2. So, if people don't know already, the first season of The Bear came out last year. It came out in 2022, and it ended up being my favourite show of last year, with Andor at a close follow-up. And the first season of The Bear, the premise for the first season of The Bear, followed a young chef called Carmen, who was played by Jeremy Allen White, and Carmen had a nickname in the show called The Bear, hence the name of the show, and he was used to working in fine dining restaurants, but he returns to his roots after his brother dies. His brother has committed suicide, so he returns to his roots to run his brother's restaurant, his brother's sandwich shop, and in doing so he has to tackle all his personal issues alongside trying to run this sandwich shop in this hectic chaos. And that was the premise of the first series, and I absolutely adore the first series. It was phenomenal, and as I've already mentioned, it was my favourite show of last year. Now we're on to Season 2, and the premise for Season 2 is that the restaurant, the sandwich shop, which Carmen is running, is being refurbished. They've come into some money and they refurbished the restaurant, but at the same time, problems are arising, and Carmen is getting involved with an old fling, and all the other side characters, all the other supporting characters are going on their own personal journeys in the second season. And I'd heard a lot of really good things about this second season of The Bear, because it came out in America about a month ago, and not only they got a month ago, and they were spoiling loads of things about it. I had to go on social media for a little bit and stop following the Bear Instagram account, because there was loads of people spoiling things about this show, spoiling all the guest stars and spoiling certain character moments and twists that happen in the second series. So I really had to get away from any spoilers about the Bear, because loads of people talk about it in America. That was all over. Everyone was raving about it in America. Loads of YouTube reviewers, which I watch on YouTube, hence why there be YouTube film reviews, Loads of reviewers I watch on YouTube were really raving about this second series of The Bear, and it came out in the UK about a week ago now, and I was a bit late to watching it when it came out in this country because I was on holiday, but over the past week, I finally sat down to watch this show, and I finally got around to seeing what all the fuss was about. And, as already mentioned, twice already, but I want to mention it again, just so people understand how much I love the first season of the show. The first series of The Bear, which came out last year, was my favourite show of 2022, and I just thought it was phenomenal, and I absolutely loved it. So, I was very, very, very excited for Season 2. And honestly, I loved this series of The Bear. I absolutely loved Season 2. And the reason I loved it was because it took the show in a different direction, which I didn't expect. that the first series is very chaotic. It's almost like the film Boiling Point with Stephen Graham, which I think came out last year as well, or might come out the year beforehand. But it's also like it's almost like the film Boiling Point, but made into one long TV show and with a lot more depth in there. That's what the first series felt like. But this series added so much more depth to all the characters, and you really followed them on their journeys. The first series had all these characters together, and you got the feeling that they were family. Pardon me. You got the feeling they were family, but that they all hated each other at the same time. They were a dysfunctional family, but they all loved each other and hated each other. You know, that was what the feeling was in the first series of The Bear. Yet in the second series, it's very much about each character's story has this beautiful development, and I sat there and I was floored by this series because it really was not what I expected. I expected there to be far more intensity and far more chaos, you know, like there was in the first series. But actually, this is a much calmer series. It's got a different spice to it. You know, the first series of The Bear very much feels like you were eating, say, some chicken on a really high spice. It's really spicy chicken, that's what it feels like. It's really intense, really gritty to watch, and there's a lot of angst in that first series and a lot of things which, you know, really make you uncomfortable, but at the same time, though, it's great TV, whilst this series is still great TV. In fact, there's even an argument that it might be better TV than the first series, although I will get onto that a bit later in this podcast, whether I think this is better or worse than the second series. But this series has a different spice to it. It's like you're eating chicken on a medium spice. You do still have that chaos in some moments, but the chaos and the hecticness and everything like that is toned down. It's brought down to another level, and in fact what this series does is focus on the characters more and focus on their own personal journeys. And you know, one of my favourite film critics, Mark Kermode, I listen to his podcast almost every week if I get the chance. You know, one of my favourite film critics, Mark Kermode, reviewed this series of The Bear, and he said something which I completely agree with. I love how, this is what he said, I love how this series develops all the characters, and that really nailed it on the head with me. That really nailed it. That was the point where I was like, oh yeah, he's nailed it. He's nailed it on the head. That is why this series of The Bear works so well, because of the development of all these characters and showing very different sides to them. These aren't just people who get angry at one another. They've also got their own heart, and they've also got really tough things that go on in their lives, and they face a lot of personal issues. And one character I particularly loved the development of was Richie. You know, Richie in the first series is a particularly unlikable character. I mean, you like watching him, but at the same time, though, he's not a particularly nice character, though. And then in this series, you still feel that to a certain degree. You still don't really like the character Richie at the start, but then the way the series develops that character, the way this season of The Bear does, is honestly exceptional. It's excellent. It's on another level. And the writing in this season of The Bear is nuanced at times, and at times it's also very much in your face like you want from a series like this. But I think that all just comes together masterfully. And I loved the filmmaking in this show, the filmmaking in this season of The Bear in particular. You know, Christopher Storer, I might pronounce his name wrong, and apologize if I am. He is the creator of this series, and he directed all 10 episodes of this season of The Bear. I'm not sure if he directed all 8 episodes of the first season, but he directed all 10 episodes of this season of The Bear, and his direction is pretty damn brilliant, because he knows how to do these slow and calm and moving moments where he just leaves the camera on these characters. That's what he does in a lot of these calm moments in the show. He just leaves the camera on these characters in these one long takes, you know, and he doesn't do any cuts or any edits, or it seems like there's no cuts or edits, and he just leaves the camera on these characters and just lets the scene play out. But then he also knows how to direct these really chaotic sequences when they get on the food ready in the restaurant. He knows how to do all this, and he knows how to do it so well, and the directing is some of the best directing I've seen in TV over the past year. it's, you know, it's on the same level as the directing in the later season of Succession. Honestly, it's so good, and similar to Succession, this is also a bit of a dark comedy. I mean, for some reason, this show is classed as a comedy at the Emmys. I don't get that. I don't think it is a straight up comedy. Like, it isn't Ted Lasso. You know, it isn't. It doesn't have the same amount of comedy as Ted Lasso does. You know, there are lots of really serious and dark moments, particularly in this season of The Bear. But there are some funny moments, like you get in Succession. Some really brilliantly and really on point dark comedic moments which you're laughing at, but you're not sure if you should be doing. And I love as well how this series developed the character of Carmen and gave him a romantic relationship, and how you seem struggling with that. I think that was beautifully done. Yeah, this season of The Bear is great, and it was not the season I expected to be, and I had to adjust my expectations as the series went on. But it's one of those series that the more I think about, the more I love. The more I love this season of The Bear. However, thinking about it over the past couple of minutes since I started doing this review, since I started doing this podcast today, I'm not sure if I like it more than the first series though. I know a lot of people are saying they prefer this over the first series of The Bear, and I understand why, but for me, that first series, there's just something about it, and also the novelty of it. You know, it was the first time I'd seen a show like this before. So watching the second series, that novelty had slipped away a little bit. You know what I mean? Because that first series, I hadn't seen anything like it really before in TV form. I'm sure the film Boiling Point, as already mentioned, but that was a movie. I know they're making it into a TV show now, but part of me thinks they're making Boiling Point into a TV show because of the success of The Bear. And I'm going to be interested to see what Boiling Point is like as a TV show, by the way, but, you know, it's got a lot to live up to, because The Bear is on a... is far, far better than Boiling Point. And I liked Boiling Point, I did, but there's far better. But, yeah, the novelty has slipped away a bit in the second series, and for me, I did like the chaos in the first series quite a lot, and I loved how each episode just flew by. And in this second series, the episodes feel longer. Now, that sounds like a criticism, but it's not. The episodes feel longer, but they're still about the same length. They're still about half an hour each, with the exception of, I think, episode 6 and the last episode of the series, episode 10, are about 45 minutes to an hour long. But every other episode in this series of The Bear is like 30 minutes long, and the thing is, though, you do feel a bit more, but I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You know, there's nothing I'd cut out in this series. I just think the fact that this series is more calmer, just... I don't know. I preferred the chaos in the first series. You still have that chaos in this series every now and then, but it's just not there as much. And I also didn't love how this series wasn't as conclusive as the first series was. Like, you could watch that first series of The Bear from episode 1 to episode 8. There was only 8 episodes in the first series. There's 10 episodes in this season of The Bear. But that first season of The Bear has 8 episodes, and you could watch it from episode 1 to episode 8, and it's got a beginning, middle, and an end for those characters. And yeah, there's a bit of setup for season 2, but it's mainly a conclusive ending. You know, you can watch that, and you won't have to see season 2. Whilst this series, I'm not saying you shouldn't watch season 2, by the way, if you did that. Season 2 is great, but this series, this season of The Bear, doesn't have as conclusive ending as series 1 does. It leaves a lot open, and I understand that's because the filmmakers and the team behind the show probably want to do another season of it. But as of now, as I'm recording this podcast, a season 3 of The Bear has not been confirmed. Now, there may be good reason for that because of the writer's strike and because of the actor's strike, which is currently taking place. But at the same time, because the season 3 hasn't been confirmed, I was watching the end of the season going, they could be tying things up a bit more. It doesn't feel quite as conclusive as I personally want it to. And there are a couple of missed opportunities as well. But if they do a season 3, and clearly the intention is that they want to do season 3 with this show, or maybe even a series 4, 5 or whatnot, you know, go do loads more series, but if they do more seasons of the show, then the missed opportunities might not become missed opportunities anymore, and the gaps might be filled in, and, you know, season 2 might lead perfectly in season 3, but we don't have season 3 yet. So the ending of this season, The Bear, I think could have felt a bit more conclusive. And for me, this season, The Bear, although very, very, very good, is not quite as good as season 1 in my opinion. I understand that a lot of people think season 2 is better, and I get why, but for me, season 1, I think there's a bit more of a spark to it. I don't know. That's the way I feel about it. But I still love season 2 though. I really do. And the fact that this show has continued to be great, but continued to be great in a very different fashion, I think really shows how great these writers are. How great these writers are. I don't know who the writers are. I should have really looked it up before I did this podcast today. But how great the writing is and how well directed the series is. And also, I want to say this, and this is not really a criticism or a positive, it's just something I want to say about this show, particularly this season of The Bear. This season of The Bear, the second series, very much feels like one long episode of Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares. And Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares, it's even called that, I think it is, but you understand what I'm talking about. Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares has become a bit of, has kind of become my guilty pleasure over the past couple of months. You know, it's on about 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock. There's 2 episodes on E4 every morning. If you're in the UK, hopefully you know what I'm talking about. You know what channel I'm talking about. It's on from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock every morning on E4. And I watch it, and it's clearly fabricated in so many moments, and it's clearly fake in so many moments as well. But I also enjoy it. I enjoy Gordon Ramsay's Kitchen Nightmares a lot. And when I was watching this season of The Bear, it reminded me a lot of that, because there's always a segment in each episode of Kitchen Nightmares, well, almost every episode of Kitchen Nightmares, where they refurbish a restaurant. They give it a new look because often the restaurant is falling apart, and so Gordon gets his men in and they give the restaurant a new look. That's what the narrator usually says, and that's what this season of Bear feels like. It feels like we're giving the restaurant a new look, and we know it's going to come into problems, but you know, we're giving the restaurant a new look, and we're letting the people who work in the restaurant go on their own journeys. And you get that a bit in Kitchen Nightmares. So yeah, it was just funny watching this show alongside watching Kitchen Nightmares on on TV, and seeing some similarities. Not really a positive, not really a criticism, just something I wanted to know. It's quite funny. For me, The Bear Season 2 gave a very different look at these characters, and in doing so, gave a different spice, you know, getting some food puns in there, gave a different spice to this series. And how have I forgot to mention this? Episode 6 of this season of The Bear is tremendous. I almost forgot to mention this. It's such a good episode. You know, that episode of this season of The Bear, or season 2, episode 6 of The Bear, is so good. You see all the family together. It's a flashback episode, and when that episode started, like, oh, it's taken away from the main story of this show. Why doing that? Why doing a whole episode as a flashback? And then you watch that episode play out though, and it fits perfectly into the story of the bear at this point in the show, and at the same time though offers far more insight into Carmen and his family and Richie and what Richie's been through in his time. And man alive, episode 6, it's a Christmas episode as well. I'm going to watch it every Christmas. It's pretty amazing. Maybe the best episode of TV I have seen, period, over the past couple of years. I mean, it's TV on another level. It's exceptional. It really is. And I also thought that episodes 7, 8, and 10, and even 9 as well. Yeah, I did think 9 was phenomenal. I thought all those episodes were phenomenal and magnificent, and really left me floored. They really did. And I love the payoff as well. I love how we see all these characters go on their journeys, and they have this great payoff at the end of this series. And yeah, God, it's a great season of television. I don't like it just quite as much as Series 2. I think Series 2 is slightly, just a little bit better. But for me, Season 2 is still phenomenal, because this season of Bear has a different texture to it. It's got some more meat in there, which I didn't expect, and once again deliciously entertaining, with well-written episodes that have consistency of quality that never really lets down and continues to provide flavourful and spicy entertainment. Got all my little food puns in there, but no, it is such a brilliant piece of television, and I absolutely love it. I absolutely loved this season, The Bear, and hopefully season 3 happens, because I want to see where his characters go, and whenever that season 3 does happen, I can't wait to see it. Yeah, absolutely. It's insanely good. This season, The Bear is insanely good, and so, all in all, I'm going to say that The Bear season 2, I'm going to say that it's a 9 out of 10. Yeah, I have my small problems with this series, so that's why I'm not giving it a 10 out of 10 or 9.5 out of 10. But when I look back on season 2 of The Bear, I'm still going to go, that was great. And it still will be in my top 5 TV shows of the year. I mean, when I look back on The Bear, actually, I'm not going to say it was great. I'm going to say it was magnificent. And it will definitely be in my top 5 TV shows of the year. Probably within the same ranking as Barry season 4 and Succession season 4, and just below Davy Jones in the 6th for me, because I think for me personally that show's worked on another level, but on another personal level, should I say, which, you know, I can't really explain. But this season The Bear, though, is phenomenal, as I've already said about 1,000 times. And I also loved all the guest stars in this series. You know, in the first series of The Bear, you did have some guest stars every now and then, like John McHale was in there as Carmen's past chef, and Oliver Platt was in there as Carmen's uncle. And Oliver Platt is someone I'm a huge fan of. I want to see him more. You know, I loved him in the first series of Fargo, loved him in X-Men First Class, and yeah, I love Oliver Platt whenever he shows up in anything. And I don't see him enough, though, and he's in this show, and every single time he's on screen, he steals each moment. He's chewing up scenery in the way Oliver Platt does in everything he's in. And in the first series, yeah, you had your guest stars, but not nearly that much. And in this second series, though, there's loads of guest stars, and I won't spoil who they are, but every time a guest star came in the show, they fitted perfectly into this series. They didn't feel forced. They fit perfectly into the series, and I love how it did that, because all these famous actors are clearly huge fans of this show. That's what I've read, particularly one of the actors who were in there. You know, all these actors who came into this second series are clearly huge fans of the show, and they wanted to be in it. But you can tell the writers haven't just forced them in there. They've written these characters and go, well, you can play it if you want, but at the same time, no, it won't matter if a lesser famous actor plays that character. You know, you know what I mean? It never feels forced. I love the fact that the guest stars all work so well, and really add another layer of texture, you know, to this series, and a little bit of spice as well, and make it more flavoursome, particularly in episode 6 with the Christmas family dinner, which, one of the best episodes I have seen of TV, perhaps ever. But anyway, as I've already mentioned, I loved this season, The Bear. I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. One of the best shows of 2023 so far, and will probably end up being one of the best shows of this year. Yeah, phenomenal TV. Love how it develops all these characters. Beautifully made and so well crafted, with needle drops, you know, something I haven't really talked about. You know, music and songs and needle drops in the series, which is so on point, and lines of dialogue which are so poignant as well. And yeah, this season The Bear is just fantastic. And you know, one last thing I want to say is that this season The Bear feels very much like the second course of a meal, and I'm not going to say how many parts of this meal, how many courses of this meal there may be, but it feels like it's the second course of a meal. It does feel like it's been left open a little bit, but the course is still fulfilling, and there's a different spice to it, and that's why it worked. It's fulfilling, and it got that payoff, and yeah, it worked for me, and I'm really happy it did, because season 1 was my favourite show of last year, and season 2 is one of my favourite shows of this year, and yeah, I absolutely absolutely loved it. If you hadn't got that already, let's see how long I've been rambling on for. Oh boy, I've been rambling on for over 25 minutes, so I'm going to round this off. It's a phenomenal series. If you're not watching The Bear already, go and check it out. Absolutely brilliant. And yes, as I've already mentioned, as I've already said, I would give The Bear Season 2, I would give it a 9 out of 10. It's absolutely magnificent, and yeah, it's got a different spicy series, but in a way, that makes it even more entertaining. And so, as already mentioned, I'm going to say a third time in this podcast today. Man alive, I'm all over the place today. But as I'm going to mention for the third time in this podcast, I'm going to say that The Bear Season 2 is a 9 out of 10 from me. Anyway guys, that is it for this podcast for today. Sorry for rambling on, I just do that every now and then. But I think it's because I love the show so much. You know, when you love something so much, you start rambling on about it a bit more than you intend to. But nonetheless, if you have watched to this point in the podcast, or listened to this point in the podcast, thank you very, very much. And please let me know your thoughts on The Bear Season 2, or even on The Bear Season 1, or whatever. Just let me know your thoughts on The Bear overall in the comment section below if you have seen the show, because I'd love to hear your thoughts in it. And if you haven't seen the show yet, go and check it out. What You're Doing, one of the best shows of 2023 so far. One of the best shows of the past couple of years, just as a whole. And it's coming on Disney Plus, and I can't recommend it enough. It's on Disney Plus in the UK, and it is 100% worth your time. Anyway guys, thank you as always for watching or listening, and if you haven't yet, please do click down below and like, subscribe on this podcast, and look forward to many more podcasts coming very, very soon on this channel. Thank you as always for watching or listening, and I will see you guys again soon, but bye for now. Bye.